Summer brain drain, or sometimes called the summer slide, affects students of all grades around the country. Now, research shows that elementary school students lose, on average, 20% of their year gains in reading over summer break. If kids fall behind one summer, they're more likely to widen the achievement gap as time goes on. Brandon Cardet-Hernandez is a former teacher and principal and is now Chief Strategy Officer for Mrs. Wordsmith. He joins us with more. Good morning, Brandon. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well. How about you?
Great. What is summer brain drain for students and how big of a problem is it?
Well, first, I'm happy that we're talking about it. As a former teacher and a former principal, I think this is this thing we all knew was happening, and we felt so many parents weren't aware of the importance of those 2 months during the summer. Summer brain drain is exactly what you said. It's when kids aren't actively learning, they can lose up to 20% of what they were learning over the course of a school year. And the compounding effects they're huge.
Now, what happens to achievement over time due to the brain drain?
Yeah. So I think, it's really important to start with some data. Only 36% of fourth graders in the United States, 37% of high school students in the United States are reading on grade level. So many of our kids in our own home, right, are often starting behind. Over the course of multiple summers, you can lose 2 years of reading progress. And that's just what happens when we're not thinking, we're not actively engaged in learning. The compounding effects are huge, and of course, that decreases motivation. And that motivation to keep learning is one of the most important things that will allow a student to show up and try to do hard things.
Now, Brandon, we've all heard about the science behind reading. How can parents deploy it at home?
Yeah, I think it's important for families not to get scared. I'm a working dad myself, right? This is not about over the summer setting up a classroom in your house. This is about finding these small opportunities, joyful moments to create play-based learning in your home. I'm a guy who loves video games. That's what we're up to at Mrs. Wordsmith. We love building learning tools that are easy to use. So for me, for example, at breakfast with my son, I'm playing our game Ridiculous. He's 6 years old. He's starting to learn those early reading skills, how to decode, blend letters together, to start really unpacking what a word is. And so that's a really easy opportunity, right? To just use a moment that you have, do something that feels really useful as a family, and then build those opportunities over time. Maybe it's a word a day, maybe it's a video game like the one I mentioned. Lots of different ways to bring it to life at home.
Now, with some solutions existing in app form, how should parents navigate managing screen time?
Of course, it's a good question, and it's a question every parent's asking themselves. I think it's always important to start that just not all screen time is created equal, right? A young person sitting at home watching television for 6 hours, probably not the great use of their cognitive potential, right? Like their brain thinking. But a 30-minute video game that as a parent is focused on expanding vocabulary, like our game at Mrs. Wordsmith Word Tag, right? That's a really great use of time while you're figuring out as a family something else to do. It's about balance, it's about knowing what's in front of your kid, and it's about really being a good consumer, like choosing screen time that feels right and feels valuable, particularly over the summer.
Now, Brandon, where can my viewers go for more information?
Of course, if you want to learn more about Mrs. Wordsmith and our products, but also just more about the science of reading and how you can deploy it at home, you can check us out at mrswordsmith.com/science.
Oh, Brandon, thank you so much for joining us on Morning Blend.
Thank you so much for having me.